So I just finished putting in stitches for someone's hand. I was rushing to my next patient, and I found him sitting in the hallway. Without even getting close, I noticed his torn and bloody clothes. Was he in a horrible accident? No, he was not. He tells me he just murdered someone in their own bed. I became real quiet, sensing the tension in the air. He began very slowly standing up, his eyes cocked up at an odd angle and locked onto mine as a weird smile appeared on his face. I should have run right there and called for help, but tunnel vision and brain fog paralyzed me. This is probably what his last victim felt right before dying. In my head, I completely surrendered. My time had come.
So this is the true story of the creepiest encounter I've ever had in the emergency department. If you like stories just like this one, then please subscribe and pound the like button. Leave a comment and let me know what is the creepiest thing you have ever encountered.
To understand how I found myself in this situation, I have to take you back to the day before. In Queens, New York, Yat Ming Wong, 41-year-old man, was getting ready to go to bed with his wife. It was a typical evening in their quiet neighborhood. Yat and his wife live on the third floor of this very apartment complex. They've lived here for over 20 years and always had good relations with their neighbors. It is now 2 a.m. Yat is sound asleep. Next to him is his wife, who is still awake. Some odd noises had spooked her earlier, and now in the distance, she thinks she's hearing them again. Clang, clang, clang. The sound appeared to get louder and closer. What is going on? Suddenly, the noise is right outside their bedroom. She sits up, sensing something is wrong. Something just landed outside their balcony, but how is that possible? They live on the third floor. In the darkness, she begins to see a shadowy figure getting larger, almost materializing out of the ground beneath. Studying the shadowy movements, she realizes that someone is climbing up the balcony. In horror, she remembers that her balcony door and windows are unlocked. They almost never lock these things as there was never the need. They live so far up after all. She rushes toward to rectify this, but it is too late. The shadowy figure cracks the window open forcefully and begins to pull his body through. She screams in terror and flees, running outside of the bedroom. In the confusion, she accidentally slams the door behind her and causes it to automatically lock. No longer able to get into the bedroom, she's trapped her sleeping husband with the shadowy intruder alone. Not knowing what to do, she cries and screams and pounds on the door to wake him. Back in the room, her husband is startled out of his slumber. He instinctively sits up, trying to look for the source of the commotion, and quickly locks eyes with the man who is now at the foot of the bed. Without his glasses, Yat can only squint and makes out a gangly young man. In the young man's left hand is a large kitchen knife. Noticing it, Yat freezes up and begins pleading for his life. Please, don't hurt me. Whatever you want. The other man ignores this and walks towards the bed. The wife hears a brief struggle, but as quickly as it starts, all is quiet again. When the wife finally makes it back to the bedroom, she finds her husband motionless. Bedsheets are soaked completely with his blood. I, of course, do not know any of this as I approach the same gangly young man now, sitting in my ER hallway.
Your chart says you need some blood work. What's going on today?
He slowly turns and looks at me. I'm struck by the coldness in his face. There's an odd silence as he just studies me. I ask him again.
I'm hungry. Get me something to eat.
It was more of a command rather than a question.
Yeah, no problem, but first, what else is going on?
Nothing else. I am hungry.
I press him further. I ask him if he's hurt, pointing out that he's covered in blood and dirt.
Don't worry about that. I just killed someone.
The words were stuck in my throat as I processed what he had just said. The matter-of-factness in how he said everything really disturbed me. He didn't like my delayed response and began standing up. Instead of straightening his hips to face me, he cocks his eyes at an odd angle and makes direct eye contact with mine. An eerie smile spreads over his face, but his eyes remain cold. He's almost at full height now. Smaller and smaller I become until I'm but a trapped bird in a cage. Because all human rules of conduct no longer apply for this man, I have no idea what is going to happen next. He initiates a step in my direction. Before I can even respond, he is shoved back down to his seat. A police officer magically appears and holds steady pressure on the man's shoulder. The officer looks down and shakes his head silently, almost as if he was scolding a child. The gangly man eases up and relaxes into his chair, as if he were suddenly in a lounge, acting as if nothing even happened. That's when I noticed the shackles around his ankles. The guy probably would have never even reached me, but the psychological damage is done. I am shook. The police officer looks at me now.
We just need some blood drawn from him and we'll be on our way.
The shackled man responds with new intensity.
No one is touching me.
He locks eyes with me.
I already know what you look like.
I already know what you look like. Harmless words when spoken under normal circumstances, but in the mouth of a murderer, it was radioactive. He knows what I look like, where I work, and can probably figure out where I live. What if he escapes? Will he go after me out of spite? I don't actually live that far from where the murder took place. Will he climb into my balcony too? Do I always lock everything before I go to bed? I cover my hospital ID badge hanging off of my shirt and quickly leave the hallway to get out of his view. My only goal is to minimize further contact before he memorizes the details of my face. Unfortunately, that doesn't solve the quandary at hand. The police want to test his blood for drugs, but the patient is flat out refusing. I cannot forcibly submit patients to testing against their will, as doing so can be considered assault and battery, and doing so for a suspected murderer who's threatened you is even more dicey. However, not helping the police procure evidence when requested may also be considered an obstruction of justice. Have you heard of the story of Alex Wubbles? Alex Wubbles, an ER nurse, was arrested and handcuffed and dragged out of the emergency department for failure to comply with the police. The police officer wanted her to draw blood on an unconscious patient suspected of driving while under the influence. If a healthcare provider's main duty is to do no harm, and if a blood test is drawn not to help the patient's medical care, but to actually entangle the patient in further legal trouble, can the healthcare provider then choose not to participate in this said activity? What do you think? Let me know in the comments what is right and what you think you would have done. The laws surrounding this will vary state by state, and each situation will be different. Often, the hospital's legal department get involved, and that's exactly what happened here in this case. In the end, I did not proceed with the blood draw, nor engage in further contact with the patient. The police grumble a bit, but they do not arrest me, Alex Wubbles style. They take him back to the station for further processing, and I live another day to tell you this story. I would be lying if I told you I went home that day feeling safe, and I always make sure my balcony doors are locked now. But I also got out of there. I now live in a different state and work in a different hospital, and I haven't met any murderers since, as far as I can tell. All is well. And that's it for today, my friends. If you enjoyed stories like this, please pound the like button and leave a comment. Doing so greatly helps me know what is working and what is not. My goal is to entertain, but also to educate. The hospital can be a thick fog of mystery to the uninitiated. My aim is to be your one-stop shop and hopefully clear things up. Until next time.